Hello everyone, welcome to tea time. I am here in the shed on a sunny day with Atlas, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about the boring parts of horse training, life, all of those things. This is something I've been thinking about a lot this week, because any of you who've been following me, you might know that I am in the process of introducing a new horse into the herd, which takes my herd from 4 up to 6, because one of the original herd went up to my house to live with the new one for a while, and now they're all coming together. So it's been 4 for a while, we're going up to 6. One is a known horse, one is a horse that is unknown to the herd. Now, he's out in the pasture right now, but I'm in the shed here with Atlas because it's been really interesting to me as I start to introduce the new horse into the group. The thing that catches your eye when you're introducing a new horse into the group is the disagreements, the things that don't go well. And because they're novel and they're interesting and you don't know what's going to happen, that's the part of the interaction that sort of catches your eye. And that's well and good, but that's not where the important information is. I'm going to go ahead and walk out here to the pasture with Atlas, because while I'm doing tea time with you all, I am also a little bit of a watcher over the herd. Now, I've only got 3 of them here right now. The other 3 are out in a far pasture. I mix them up every day so that it's a different 3 together. With normal horses, I wouldn't go to this much effort to be careful with them. But I know that Atlas has a history of being quite aggressive in herds, and Ari's still a stallion. So the 2 of them, I'm a little bit more careful with than I would be the average horse. But as I'm here out in the pasture with Atlas, and with Z over there, it's important to remember that this right here, where Atlas is looking one direction and Z is essentially looking the same direction, he and Atlas agree on which direction they're looking. There's nothing particularly interesting or fun about 2 horses grazing in roughly the same direction. But where it becomes beautiful is, do you notice how and when it changes in ways that are not exciting? So right here, Atlas is looking up and then going back to eat after he takes a breath. And Z has turned his body position. So now he's facing Atlas. And he's going to be coming this direction because their feet generally follow where their eyes are going. And when he gets to Atlas, they're going to have some sort of an interaction, or one of them's going to straighten out again. This is generally how it works, particularly when you're introducing new horses together. And then we have Raz, who tends to sort of just jump in the middle of everything. Hi, Raz. And I really like having 3 together because that 3rd horse can often distract from an interaction that gets too intense. Every problem you're ever going to have with horses, whether it's in training or in herd introduction or whatever it is, every problem you ever have with a horse is going to be from hyper focus first. So they look at something, they focus on something, and they can't look away. And when they get hyper focused on something, they don't realize how many good decisions there are that could be made outside of the one point of focus that they have. And so in my training, I don't try and fix a problem. I try and educate the horse to have a more resilient nervous system so that they can pull themselves out of hyperfocus. If they can pull themselves out of hyperfocus, then they can come up with good solutions. They want to be good herd mates. They want to have friends. If they can't have friends or they can't be good herd mates, the problem is most often because somebody's nervous system is not resilient enough to refocus when there's a problem. But here's the thing, is we don't teach them to have a more resilient nervous system in the middle of a problem. We teach them to have a more resilient nervous system in the middle of the most boring bits of their life. So if I turn here, you're going to see Atlas, Z, Raz, and they're all just meandering around eating some grass. It's not particularly interesting unless you look at the details. So I'm fascinated by the details. It's really difficult for life to be boring to me because I notice how far away Z got before Atlas felt like he wanted to follow, and how far away Atlas got before Raz wanted to follow. Like, what is the impetus? What comes before the next thing? Z went first, Atlas went second, Raz went third. That's all interesting. It's not exciting, okay? They didn't have a fight. Nobody got mad. Nobody tried to kick. Nobody squealed. All of those things that we think of when horses are being introduced is really stuff that you have to manage. It might happen. They hyperfocus, and then after they hyperfocus, they get upset with the other horse for not doing the right thing, but the other horse is hyperfocused and can't think of anything different to do. And when you get a whole bunch of hyper-focused horses, they get stuck in past patterns. They're just going to do what they did before because they can't think outside the box. They can't think of something different to do. So the beauty of training, in my opinion, is in the boring bits. This stuff that we're seeing right here of when do they graze, when do they move, when do they look up, when do they look down again. You can learn an incredible amount by noting the tiny changes between individuals and really noticing what happens in the build-up to a disagreement. What happens in the build-up to a nap? What happens in the build-up to the herd getting closer together or farther apart? What happens in the build-up to any decision? That might seem really boring to some people, but it's incredibly beautiful when you learn how to watch the details. So this is what I do with most of every day, is I watch the details. I'm either watching the details and taking notes, or I am responding to the details by showing the horses I've watched enough that I know what happens next. And when I know what happens next, I can take an action that shows them that I know what's coming next. In other words, if I had known they were going to walk away, I might do it first. If I had known they were all going to stop, I might circle around to show them that I'm going to check the safety of where they're going to stop. There's a lot of things I can do that show the horse I know what comes next. It might seem boring, but it's incredibly beautiful when you know how to interact with the details. So I'm going to observe first. I'm going to respond second. If responding is going really well and I can read a situation, then I'm going to go ahead and start interacting. And when I interact, I'm going to go, how can I be of benefit to the situation? How can I make their lives better? Then if interacting is going really well, I'm going to start thinking about ways that I could help them think outside the box. How can I help them think in ways they don't normally think, act in ways they don't normally act, stretch their comfort zone a little bit? And then from there, I can really come back a notch to a lower stress level and think, what are the things I can ask the horse to do that they just love doing with me? So that's usually the sequence that I work in. You can see Atlas has picked up his head. He's wondering why I'm still sitting here looking at my phone. He might be looking across the far pasture past me where the other horses are as well. And you can see the other horses have faced up with him. They're all looking the same direction. These moments of focus change that run through the herd like a wave. One horse changes focus, then another, then another, then another. As you see the focus changes run through the herd like a wave, they're all in agreement that something over there is important. And then they're all going to walk this direction because it's important enough they want to get closer to it. Okay, you can see that Atlas is more interested, Raz is following, Z is also following. These little simple acts of call and response, if you will. Call and response is where one horse does one thing and the other horse has some sort of a response to it. So that's what I look for in the herd, to notice what's setting them up, hi Raz, so that they don't need to argue, okay? The reasons they would argue is because neither one of them can agree and they both think the other one should bend. Now, I'm out here sort of keeping watch because Z's new to this herd. And while he's known Raz for a little while, he's known Atlas for a very brief while. And Atlas has a history of being quite violent. Now, he's gelded now, he's not a stallion anymore, and that helps a lot. But he still has a quirk in that if he gets beaten on, if a horse goes to kick him or bite him or get really aggressive, he'll just stand really still and take it for a while. And if they give up and wander off, he doesn't hold a grudge. He's pretty good at letting it go. But if they continue to hammer on him, he is going to make them wish they never walked this earth. And it's an uncalled for level of aggression that comes out of him if he feels like he's been beaten on for too long. He has absolutely zero yield when it comes to aggression. He will stand his ground and hold it. And if they don't give up and walk off, he will become very, very aggressive. Now, Z over here is my daughter's horse. And I would like to keep him intact. He's not a stallion, but I would like to keep all of his skin intact. And that means that I'm going to watch him and Atlas. And if I see them starting to get into an argument that Atlas is going to win, I know that I can step in here as the extra horse and make some noise and tell Z it's time to move on. He needs to stop beating up on Atlas. I won't always be here to do that. At some point, they're going to live together, and he might have to learn that the hard way. But I want their first days together to be as boring as possible. So we've invested billions of hours of being at peace together and agreeing on things and wanting the same thing as the other horses. It's incredibly boring in a lot of ways and incredibly beautiful if you know how to look at the details. Welcome, Ed, to Tea Time. I'm here every week. So every week I think of something new to talk about. It's usually something that seems pertinent to my education as I've been working with my horses, the things that seem valuable to me. But I also take suggestions. So if there's ever something you guys would like to hear me talk about, let me know in the comments and I will write it down and see if I can come around to it. In my herd, I have all boys because one of them is a stallion and he's out in the far pasture right now, but a little bit later I'll switch them around. When I am introducing horses that I think might have a difficult time with each other, I really like threes because that means that it's not so chaotic that they get overwhelmed by the situation, but there is a third party, or in my case, I'm the fourth party, to step in and say, hey, let's think outside the box, guys. Let's think of things a different way if they come to an argument that neither one of them can win without bloodshed. I find that Ari's really interesting because Ari plays and he plays hard and he is happy to rear and spin and get bitten and he'll take a bit of a beating. And he still is pretty good friends with the horse that he's playing hard with. He draws the line when it comes to getting hurt. So if his skin gets ripped, he becomes so angry. And as a stallion, he's got a lot of testosterone behind that anger. And the other horses will get quite scared of him. So he draws the line at losing a piece of skin. He'll take a lot of impacts, he'll take a lot of bruises, but when it comes to his skin getting torn open, he is mad. And when he's mad, everybody's scared of him. So my job as the extra character in here is to notice when things are escalating a little too high. And then I can step in and say, hey, everybody, let's take a walk off that tension a little bit, and then you can come back to your game. And I found this works pretty well. If I can invest a certain amount of hours with the herd where I'm here as the extra character to make sure that things stay boring and beautiful. I'm here to watch the focus changes run through the herd like a wave where they all agree that one thing to look at is important. That bonds them together. I'm here to notice all the boring and beautiful details and make those more important than the disagreements. If I can do that, I've given them a really solid foundation. At some point, I'm just going to turn them out in the field together and I'm going to say, good luck, guys. Hopefully you know each other well enough and you have enough of a foundation that when push comes to shove and you disagree on something, one of you can break the hyperfocus and think outside the box. Now, we know that Atlas is not going to be the one to step away if he's getting beaten on. He will step away from a threat now. So if somebody comes and pins their ears at him, he's happy to step away from pinned ears, but he will not step away from someone beating on him. Ari, happy to play. He's happy to play all day long. Just don't break his skin. He takes that very, very personally. These are things that I have learned from watching the horses. And once you see the tipping point where it's just overwhelming and they can't come out of hyperfocus anymore, you try and avoid those things. You try and say, listen, let's all try and get along. And then I know in my training that intensity is really hard for Atlas. So over time, and I'm talking years, I will probably try and build some intensity into now I'm never going to beat on him, but I will try and build some intensity into our relationship in ways where he can start breaking the hyperfocus and making a better choice other than just holding his ground and preparing to attack. With Ari, I'm certainly never going to cut his skin on purpose, but I know that he is really, really sensitive to stuff on his skin, you know, so he is sensitive to, he doesn't like walking through brambles. He doesn't like walking through thorns. I might start trying to bridge into his training. Look, we're going to have to step through these thistles here. You're not going to like it, but take a breath, think of something else, and maybe you can learn to just stretch your comfort zone a little bit to the things that are hard for you. So I can do that in my training. I'm going to do it in a very roundabout way. I'm going to do it in a way that really values the stabilization of their nervous system and their ability to look away from a hyperfocus when life gets hard. I hope that's helpful. It's what's interesting to me right now. It isn't super interesting watching horses all get along, but there's a lot of beauty in that boring moment by moment by moment. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I am happy to answer questions, and it's a slightly different way of going about training than most horse trainers. It doesn't mean that it's contradictory. It means that it's an option. And that's what I'm here to do. I am here to give you guys options, and then you get to choose how and what the best options are for you in all of your training dreams and goals and hopes. Perry says, thank you so much for sharing so much of your wisdom with us all. We are so lucky. I am happy to share, and I am sure I will keep getting lessons as I go and as I learn things and refocus on some little detail that seems beautiful to me. I will share it. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next week.